The sun had barely risen above the hills of Olympia when Lysandros of Megara stepped onto the pale morning sand of the Scamma, the athlete's training ground. Dew still clung to the olive trees, and the lingering coolness of night gave way slowly to the heat that always wrapped the valley by noon. Tomorrow he would compete in the Halma, the long jump, one of the oldest contests of the Olympic Games. Tonight he could hardly sleep. He was only 20, strong but slender compared to the massive pentathletes who trained beside him. Where they were broad and powerful, built for wrestling and discus, Lysandros was lithe, his muscles tight as bowstrings. What he lacked in size he made up in rhythm, agility, and a kind of inner fire that glowed behind his dark eyes. Today he practiced with his jumping weights, halters carved from smooth stone. Each fit his hands perfectly, shaped by years of use handed down from his father, who had been a competitor before him. Remember, his father had always said, the halters do not give you strength, they give you rhythm. You must fly because you choose to, not because you are pulled. As he leaped again and again across the packed sand, he felt eyes on him. When he turned, he saw Ariston of Sparta, the favorite to win the pentathlon, watching closely. Ariston was tall, broad, and as hard as bronze. He had already won 2 local games earlier that season, and many expected him to sweep Olympia. You jump well for a man of your size, Ariston said, not unkindly but with an edge of Spartan confidence. Lysandros wiped sweat from his brow. And you watch well for a man of your discipline, he replied with a grin. Ariston laughed, sharp-tongued. We will see if your feet are as sharp tomorrow. Their rivalry had been friendly so far, but beneath it ran a river of tension. Megara and Sparta were allies when needed but never close. Winning at Olympia meant glory not only for oneself but for one's city. Pride was always at stake. The eve of contest. That evening, all athletes gathered near the altar of Zeus for the solemn oath. They placed their hands upon the boar's flesh and swore not to cheat, not to bribe, and not to disgrace the sacred games. The air smelled of smoke and laurel, and the setting sun bathed the marble temples in gold. Lysandros felt his heart tighten with a mixture of awe and fear. He had dreamed of this moment since childhood, standing among heroes under the gaze of the gods. That night, sleep came only in fragments. He kept imagining the cheering crowd, the judges with their olive wreaths, the moment his feet left the ground. He feared slipping. He feared wind. He feared failing his father, his city, himself. When dawn finally arrived, it came like salvation. The day of the Halma. The stadium was alive with thousands of spectators, Greeks from every corner of the world, fanning themselves with hats, shouting, arguing, praising their favorites. The sand pit for the long jump was freshly raked, smooth as a beach after the tide retreats. The pentathletes would jump first, then the specialists like Lysandros. Ariston, shining with oil, stepped forward for his attempt. He swung the halters gracefully, hopped once, twice, then burst forward with a roar. His leap was enormous, his landing deep in the sand. The crowd erupted. The judges nodded to one another. A strong mark, someone murmured, hard to beat. Ariston raised his arms, basking in the acclaim. Several jumpers followed, good attempts, all athletic, all respectable, yet none matched Ariston's distance. Finally the herald called, Lysandros of Megara. A hush fell, not of fear or reverence but curiosity. Few knew him, but his earlier practice had attracted whispers. Lysandros stepped forward, the halters felt warm in his palms. He closed his eyes for a moment and pictured his father's hands guiding his own as a child. Rhythm, breath, release. He inhaled deeply. Then he began. A quick step, another, then the familiar pattern, hop, hop, his body coiling like a spring. The halters swung forward and he exploded through the air. For an instant, the world disappeared. The stadium faded, time stretched like a taut bowstring. He felt weightless, a bird over the valley, carried by something greater than strength, something like faith. He landed softly but firmly, sand spraying around him. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Judges hurried forward. One pressed a marked rod into the sand to measure. Silence stretched. Then with a raised arm, the judge announced, beyond the Spartan's mark. Gasp, cheers, shouts of disbelief. Ariston stared at Lysandros with surprise and something more complicated. Respect, admiration, or challenge. Lysandros breathed hard, heart-pounding, but kept his expression calm. Victory was not certain yet. The second round remained. The second attempt. Ariston's jaw tightened as he prepared for his second jump. The crowd fell quiet. He needed a great leap greater than his already impressive first. He sprinted, swung the halters, and launched himself. But his rhythm faltered, perhaps from pressure, perhaps from pride. He landed shorter than before. A collective sigh spread across the stadium. Lysandros stepped forward for his own final attempt, not to defend his lead, but to honor the moment. He swung the halters slowly, letting their weight guide his breath. This time he did not leap with force, he leaped with freedom. His jump soared higher, farther, smoother, landing even beyond his first mark. The crowd burst into thunder. The judges conferred only a moment before raising the olive wreath. Victor of the Halma, Lysandros of Megara. Glory and grace. As the wreath was placed upon his head, Lysandros searched the crowd. He saw farmers, poets, warriors, nobles cheering not for Megara, not for his father, not for his city, but for him. Ariston approached, his expression solemn. Then he extended his hand. "You flew like a falcon," he said. "Sparta bows to your skill." "And I honor your strength," Lysandros replied. "Without rivals there is no greatness." The two clasped forearms, and the crowd roared again. That night, as the fires lit Olympia and songs of victory echoed through the valley, Lysandros sat beneath an olive tree at the edge of the sacred ground. The laurel wreath rested in his lap. He felt no more fear, only quiet gratitude. He had jumped farther than he believed possible, not because of strength or even rhythm, but because, for a moment, he trusted himself enough to fly.